Level up with the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. Get all the benefits of AAA plus exclusive experiences, discounts, and tickets. Already a AAA member? Upgrade for free or join today at AAA.com/Commanders. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a bunch of stories up now, including on Jayden Daniels and with Marcus Mariota. The RFK Stadium vote finally goes through, and the return of Preston Smith, which I'll get to in a couple minutes. So you can go read that on ESPN.com. And don't forget, the John Keim Report is presented by AAA. So, of course, listen, I'll get into all the news, from the day with Jayden Daniels, et cetera. I will start real briefly with the RFK vote because there was a second vote by the DC Council. They are required by law to have two votes on any sort of project like this. So they, of course, passed it in August. That was the big one. Once you pass that, it's pretty much becomes a foregone conclusion, except that there were a bunch of amendments added to this one that I think the team did not expect, and they weren't very happy about. And so, but eventually it got settled. The vote passed 11-2. It was 9-3 the first time, so it was even better. So there it is. They're going back to RFK, and the stadium expected to open in 2030. That part of the saga is over. It's an incredible return to get to RFK. I did not think that was possible about 2 years ago, but once Josh Harris took over, and even before, like once Dan Snyder put the team up for sale, it had a much better chance. But it was really when the government gave the land, agreed to lease the land to the district, that's what really set it in motion. So, anyways, there you go. I had talked to one person with the team, who said that he basically cried when the first time it happened, and he said that he just got emotional this time as well, because of what that return means to them, to the ownership group, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, now let's get to the news of the day and just talk about what all this stuff means, starting with Jayden Daniels' status. So he obviously did not practice on Wednesday. I'm sure you know that by now, because of that sprained left knee. I did see him walking into the practice bubble early in the morning wearing appeared to be like a big a black brace on his left knee, which you would expect if he's going to play. If he would play, I would expect him to probably wear that, but I don't know for sure. The big day for him will be Friday, and I don't know that we're going to know 100% certain if he's going to play by that day or not. It could very well be that they take it into the game day, depending on how that knee progresses. They are going to be very, very cautious. You know that, I know that, and I don't think there's a lot of subterfuge going on. Like, I don't believe let me say this, if they may think he's not going to play, but they're leaving open that possibility for sure. And the fact that he didn't practice today, if you're another team, you kind of have a feeling that he may not play. So I don't know that there's a ton of gamesmanship with this because, even if you're the Raiders, you're going to prepare certainly for both quarterbacks. And the one thing is the styles are about the same. Like Marcus Mariota and Jayden Daniels, not the exact same quarterback, but they have a similar style. And I think the toughest part for a team is when you're preparing for different styles more so than different quarterbacks, because then the plays typically remain the same. There are going to be some that Marcus likes better than Jayden, but by and large, what you're going to ask them to do is somewhat similar. And the funny thing is, like in this game, it could look different too, in part because there's no Austin Ekeler. There's nobody that does what he does. So you're going to change that up to accommodate a Bill Krosky-Merritt or whomever goes in there. And Krosky-Merritt was number one in the depth chart, for whatever that's worth. And, then you have Jeremy McNichols, Chris Rodriguez, but I would assume that Krosky-Merritt will get a lot of work. So, what he does is different than what Austin Ekeler does. And then if John Bates doesn't play or if Noah Brown doesn't play, who they bring in is different, all around. So there are a lot of different parts in this one. And even like without Bates, don't be surprised. You could see Trent Scott in there at times as like a third tight end, a blocking tight end alongside Sinnott, and then maybe in the 13 personnel with Zach Ertz as well. So anyway, so I don't know that I don't think they have this settled even in their own minds. And I will say, like what I've heard from people close to Jayden is just more or less that, the team kind of wants to protect him from himself, and that he's kind of really pushing hard, behind, just working hard to get back. But the team kind of has to like slow down a little bit here because they don't want him overextending himself just to get back. They want to make sure that he, when he gets back, that he can do certain things that he normally does. And I will say, and I told you this before, and I will maintain this, the trust here is a big, big deal. And I was talking to one player about that, and he's like, this player was like, it's not like this everywhere else. It's just not, where the coaching staff and the trainers do have, I think, the players' better interests in mind. And I think they've taken their time with some other injuries to get guys back. So I think you can look at that. If Jayden Daniels does play, it's not because they rushed him back or because they pushed him to come back. It's because they saw that he was ready. I don't think they'll put him out there. If he can't move and escape danger, it doesn't make sense to put him out there. It just doesn't. And I don't think they would either. And I think if they got to a point where they saw him being impacted by that, I think they would pull him out. Just like what we saw in the Dallas game. Like that wasn't even, he had a mild leg soreness. So I don't know how bad it really was, but it was mild enough and troubling enough to the coaches that when you look at, like, he was getting chased around a lot by the Dallas rush that day, you didn't want to put him at further risk if he couldn't move a certain way. When you got Max Crosby coming up, you want to be careful. So I think they will be careful, for sure. What that means, stay tuned, because they haven't ruled them out. We can all have our guesses, but until we know for sure, that's where I just have to go by that. And again, we'll know more on Friday. I don't know that it will be definitive on Friday at all. So, we'll see. So, but if Marcus Mariota has to play, like, the good thing for this team is that what he went in and did last year was 33 for 41, 366 yards and 4 touchdowns in the wins over Carolina and Dallas. And he operated at a very high level. Like, he is very comfortable in this offense. It has elements of what he ran at Oregon when he was in college. He likes that you can control, at the quarterback, you can control the tempo. But there's just a comfort level. And we were talking to Terry McLaurin about this too, with Mariota. Like, they have a comfort level with him as well. Like, his experience, he's been in the league 11 years. He's been in all sorts of situations. He's been the guy. He's been hurt. He's lost his job. He's been traded. So he's very relatable. But I think all that experience keeps him rather calm. And even McLaurin said when there's a calmness with him in the huddle, and they can feel his energy. Now, the other part for McLaurin, we obviously know they need to get him going. Like, it has not been clicking. He knows it needs to get going. And one thing he was talking about was just on some of his routes that maybe when you're not doing as well, are you speeding up your routes a little bit? Are you changing the speed of your routes to accommodate that and maybe getting a little bit off rhythm? And he also talked about, and I saw this kind of on film against some man coverage, needing to use his hands better to get free from the defensive back, to basically use his speed and not hand fight down the field, which is what was happening in Green Bay. He definitely at times was open against Green Bay, a lot of times in zone coverage. But I think that's something to watch as well. But that was one thing he talked about. But keep this in mind. And it's funny because he hasn't worked a lot with Mariota this spring or this summer, or even early season, obviously. And he didn't get a chance with Jayden, but they did have a good chemistry as well last year. In fact, Mariota completed 12 of the 13 passes he threw to McLaurin, including the 5-yard game-winning touchdown pass with a couple seconds left to beat Dallas in the regular season finale. So McLaurin, and here's the other thing with McLaurin, we were talking to him today on Wednesday, and he joked, he's like, I've played with a lot of different quarterbacks, and there was just kind of a pause, and everybody kind of started laughing because, like, yeah, he's played with more than a few quarterbacks in his time here. And if Mariota starts, I think that would be his 12th quarterback that he's had that his 12th starting quarterback he's played with. So he's used to that and used to adapting, and he's done pretty well along the way. Commanders fans, this is for you. Level up with the brand new AAA Commanders MVP membership. You'll receive all the benefits of AAA, such as 24/7 roadside assistance, plus chances to win game tickets, access to exclusive team events and experiences, along with 15% off Commanders gear at the online pro shop. Already a AAA member? Add the Commanders MVP membership for free. Head to AAA.com/Commanders to upgrade or join the squad and put your fandom in drive. In practice today, Brandon Coleman was limited with a shoulder issue. He had a black jersey on, which signifies no contact. Trey Amos also had a black jersey on, signifying no contact. And I forgot what his injury was. I think, let me check that out here, so I can give it to you. Oh, so I can give it to you for sure. And that was also a shoulder. That's what I thought. So, but both of them had no contact jerseys. If Coleman couldn't go for some reason, both were limited today. If Coleman couldn't go for some reason, I think they would probably put I could see Allegretti going over there. I don't know. And then you could move Wiley over to right guard. Those are some options for sure, but we'll see what happens. Still more to learn. I do know that Coleman gets hurt a lot, and I think that's disruptive to the line. And clearly, nobody wants to get hurt. Nobody wants that. But when you are getting hurt a lot, it is disruptive. He was out. He was out for 3 weeks during camp. You're in. You're out for 3 weeks. You come back for a few weeks. So hopefully for his sake and the line's sake, he doesn't miss any time. But if he does, like that, and it was an issue last year getting hurt a lot. So I think that's something that just you have to rectify itself at some point. Now, Dan Quinn also said that with receiver Noah Brown, he said that the other day he called Brown and John Bates long shots to play in this game. He kind of backpedaled on that on Wednesday. So we'll see what their status is. I don't know. Again, we don't know. But he did backpedal and it wasn't as I think there was a glimmer of hope that maybe Brown could play in this game. I don't know if that's the same case with Bates. But again, if Bates doesn't go, I could see Trent Scott being an option as a blocking tight end, so to speak. And of course, we know the deep threat that he is, as the Bengals well know. So, obviously a little kid. So that's good news for Brown, that even if he doesn't play, the fact that it's not as bad suggests that it's a very short stay. If it had been bad, I mean, these groin issues could linger for a while, but if it had been like that, then they would have probably put him on IR, and they did not for either one of them. So that was a good sign. And I'm sure too that they put Jonathan Jones on IR with a hamstring injury. So they did that because of the return of former Washington Redskin Preston Smith. And he, of course, he was a second-round pick for the team in 2015, played here till 2018, signed with Green Bay in free agency. And it's funny because I know at the time they always knew it was going to be hard to keep him because they just couldn't afford, they didn't want to pay what it was going to take to keep him. And he went to Green Bay and did a pretty nice job for 4.5, 5 years or whatever it was, and then got traded to Pittsburgh during last season, was seventh-round pick. So with Preston, now this is the guy that they have been talking to for a couple weeks. They had, I want to say I had heard on Tuesday I'd heard that they had been talking to him for 2 weeks. Dan Quinn said they've been talking to him for a while. So somebody close to Smith said it called it 2 weeks. Regardless, the team has had interest in Preston for a little bit. And so it was before the Wise injury that they even had interest in him. I think it accelerated with the Wise injury, and then he visited the facility on Tuesday, or worked out on Tuesday. My understanding is had they not signed him, he was going to fly out to LA to visit the Chargers on Wednesday, and the Chargers, of course, just lost Khalil Mack, but Preston stayed overnight in DC knowing that there was a chance he could get signed here, and that's, of course, what happened. So, and he said that, I asked him about, you could have gone out to LA, you got Khalil Mack out, and he's like, they made it right here. So this is where he's very familiar here, although it's funny because the facility looks quite a bit different from when he was here the first time. There was just, from the locker room to the lobby, there's nothing that looks the same. So, and even you getting rid of the AstroTurf field out there. So it was kind of funny to hear him talk about just how different it was, and him saying something to Terry McLaurin about how different it was. And it's funny, the only players that were around from when he was here the first time is Tressway, Deron Payne, and Jeremy Reeves. Terry McLaurin joined the team a year later. So with Preston Smith, his role is going to be a versatile chess piece. That's what Dan Quinn likes. They like guys who can do a bunch of different things, and that's Preston Smith. He's not, I don't know that he's going to go out there and be a 6 to 8 sack guy. If you can get that 4 to 8, 6, 7 range, that's pretty good for what they have because they have enough depth there, and he just adds another depth piece. He's got size. He's 6'5", 265. He's a strong guy. He's not Dietrich Wise strong. Wise was about 280. So there's a difference there. But he does play with strengths. He does do a good job setting the edge, and he can still rush the passer. He can rush. His preference had been in the past to rush as a 3-4 linebacker. So, but here you can rush like that. You can stand up as a rusher. You can rush inside at times. So I think he welcomes that versatility. I think he's happy to just be back out in the field. I would, again, talk to people yesterday. It's like he's kind of has a pretty big chip because he was a little bit annoyed that he hadn't been signed yet. And so this gives him that chance. And I think it's a good move. Now, the hard part is like this is an older team. When you get older teams, you do get those little injuries or whatever. And so like we've seen that already. But I think it gives you that depth. You're not going to get, there aren't a whole lot of options out there that I think would be better than Preston Smith if you want to strengthen your defensive front. So seems to be a good move. We'll see what kind of impact he really has. But again, he just has to be a depth piece. He's not coming here to be the final piece of a championship run. He's got to come here and be a depth piece and be a versatile piece. And that's one thing that I've liked about this front is that they are versatile and they do have depth. Like you can play multiple fronts and just different packages within those fronts that make it, I think, beneficial to the Commanders. And I think Preston Smith fits in well with that. Commanders fans, this is for you. Level up with the brand new AAA Commanders MVP membership. You'll receive all the benefits of AAA, such as 24/7 roadside assistance, plus chances to win game tickets, access to exclusive team events and experiences, along with 15% off Commanders gear at the online pro shop. Already a AAA member? Add the Commanders MVP membership for free. Head to AAA.com/Commanders to upgrade or join the squad and put your fandom in drive. Anyways, folks, that's it from me. For you Gold members, don't forget there's a Zoom on Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern time, and I will be back on Friday night, Saturday morning with my 5 things I think getting you ready for the Raiders game. And for you club members, don't forget I'll be doing the private Zoom, just private chat, I guess, or live stream on Sunday morning about 10 a.m. Eastern time, a few hours before the game, get you ready for kickoff. Had double the number last time. So you club members, join me and we'll chat and get ready for the game. So appreciate you tuning in. I'll talk to you next time.